ever wondered what truly moves the needle in the world? I mean, is it all just individual success or is there something bigger, something we do for others? Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, the pretty fascinating world of volunteering and what active responsibility really looks like. We've got a really unique set of reflections here, insights from lots of different perspectives on what volunteering actually means, how it hits us personally, and how it shapes society overall. So our mission really for this deep dive is to unpack all that, pull out the key nuggets of knowledge and show you why getting involved in your community, could be local, could be global, is, well, it's more than just being nice. It's actually a powerful tool for your own growth and for changing things around us.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. A lot of people, I think, see volunteering as, purely altruistic, just giving. But our sources, they keep mentioning this surprising, dual benefit, almost like a two-way street. So beyond just giving your time, what are the personal takeaways people are actually getting?
Yeah, it's really compelling, isn't it? How often the sources stress that volunteering isn't just about fixing someone else's problem. It's also about, significant personal development for the volunteer. For instance, there's this reflection from an environmental cleanup. The participants, they didn't just pick up litter.
Right.
They actually learned teamwork, communication, responsibility, empathy, all sort of naturally. One person even mentioned feeling like way more self-confident, a real sense of meaning. They call that a personal investment, which I thought was interesting.
Personal investment. I like that. It flips the script, doesn't it? It's not a sacrifice. It's something you gain from directly.
Exactly.
So what other kinds of personal gains did the sources mention from these experiences?
Absolutely. It's definitely a two-way street. Another person shared about visiting an elderly care home.
Okay.
They admitted feeling, well, maybe a bit hesitant at first,
Sure, that makes sense.
But then, just by listening to stories, sharing a bit about their own life, they discovered this incredible value and respect, patience, intergenerational communication. And doing that made them feel, well, more responsible, more mature. It really highlighted the kind of power of just connecting with people.
Yeah, that human connection piece. So this kind of leads to thinking about how different people find their own spot, their niche in volunteering. If you were, say, designing a project based on your interests, how do the sources suggest you could, make that work, find that fit?
We'll sort of get some great ideas for that kind of personalization. One person really into nature and animals.
Right.
They imagined setting up a campaign for abandoned animal shelters.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just like asking for money.
Right.
It was organizing a food collection week at school. Using social media, adopt, don't buy was the theme. And, this is cool, they plan to use their video editing skills for promotions.
Ah, that's smart. Using your actual skills.
Exactly. Combining passion and, actual skills with making a contribution.
That's a fantastic way to blend passion with purpose. So how else does this idea, this personal investment idea, translate into practical community stuff?
Well, if you connect it to the bigger picture, similar ideas apply even to something like joining a healthy living club.
How so?
One source pointed out that taking a role in a club like that gives you a real sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about your health anymore.
Right, you're setting an example.
Precisely. You're looking after yourself, sure, but you're also kind of modeling it for others. It means, finishing tasks, working with a team, focusing on well-being, all contributing to health and a strong team vibe.
Okay, so we've talked individual benefits, community roles, but here's where I think it gets really interesting. Our sources really hammer home the critical role of young people in volunteering. Why youth specifically? What makes them so important for society's well-being, according to these reflections?
Yeah, that's a key question. Why youth? And the sources suggest it's because young people often bring, energy, creativity. They're generally more open to change. That makes them powerful catalysts, right, for positive contributions. There was a great example shared about a friend volunteering in a cleanup campaign, cleaning beaches every weekend, which, okay, obviously helps the environment, but the knock-on effect was it actually mobilized other young people.
Ah, the ripple effect.
Exactly. It inspired this sense of responsibility in the wider community, starting with their peers.
So it's not just about the sheer number of volunteers, it's about their unique sort of influence. How does that youth energy create ripples in bigger projects?
Think about school projects. The sources describe these as really effective, like, say, young people leading a healthy living project. an active school movement.
What did that involve?
Things like daily 15-minute walks,
Uh-huh.
promoting healthy breakfasts, sharing info on social media. Simple stuff, maybe, because young people were running it.
Peer pressure, but the good kind.
Sort of. Peer motivation is super high. You get much better participation. And then it can actually spread beyond the school. Parents get involved, a local community. A small school thing can become a much bigger awareness campaign.
And these efforts, they aren't just tweaking things at the edges, right? Our sources suggest they can actually tackle some major societal problems. What are some of the really critical issues that volunteering seems positioned to help solve?
Yeah, definitely. Volunteering can contribute to solving a whole range of things. Environmental pollution, for sure. Loneliness, homelessness, access to education.
Big issues.
Huge. For instance, some students volunteered at a food bank. They were packaging meals for people in need.
Okay.
So that directly reduced food waste and provided hot meals to homeless people. Another really powerful example was volunteer mentors
Mentors for who?
for new students, helping
Right.
them settle into school, figure out study methods, just feel secure, you know.
But that tackles loneliness. Yeah.
Right. But it also, maybe surprisingly, developed empathy and leadership skills in the mentors themselves. Another two-way street.
That's incredible. So you're meeting urgent needs, but also building skills and community ties all at once. So zooming out a bit, what does all this mean for the bonds within a community, the social fabric?
Well, these activities are kind of fundamental for building strong bonds. When people come together for a shared purpose, something bigger than themselves, trust grows, solidarity grows, empathy, it just flourishes. One person remembered a cleanup campaign, people of all different ages, backgrounds.
Just thrown together.
Yeah, strangers at first. But they bonded really quickly, just through working together, talking. Some even became lasting friends. And because there's usually no self-interest, no agenda in volunteering, those relationships feel more, I don't know, genuine. It strengthens the whole community, leads to a more peaceful society, arguably.
Okay, so taking that connection idea even further, what happens when volunteering crosses borders, national borders? How do those international projects shape a young person's view of the world?
Oh, massively. International volunteering really broadens horizons. It just immerses you in different cultures, different ways of life.
Got an example.
Yeah, one source mentioned a cousin who did an Erasmus Plus project in Italy. Environmental protection, working with young people from all over.
Okay.
And the experience wasn't just about the environment. It was learning about totally new cultures, seeing different perspectives, becoming way more open, more tolerant.
I can imagine.
Plus, you have to get foreign language practice, a boost in self-confidence, better teamwork skills.
Yeah.
It really prepares you for a more globalized world.
It sounds genuinely transformative, learning about the world not just from a book, but by, living it.
Exactly.
So why is that level, the global level of volunteering, so important for the big issues like health, environment, education?
Well, volunteering globally on those fronts is, frankly, crucial, both for humanity and for your own personal growth. Think about volunteers in, say, African villages working on clean water access.
Right.
They aren't just helping. They're literally changing lives.
Yeah.
Directly. Or people joining ocean cleanup campaigns that feels like fulfilling a basic responsibility to the planet, doesn't it?
It does.
Or volunteer teachers working with disadvantaged kids. They're providing opportunities that might not exist otherwise. These experiences, they force you to see the world is way bigger, more complex than your own little bubble. And that really fosters empathy, patience, learning to collaborate with people who are maybe very different from you.
Okay, so this brings us to a pretty big, maybe provocative question that seems to bubble up from the sources. When we talk about huge global issues like the climate crisis, is contributing voluntarily a personal duty, or is it still just a choice?
That's a really important point, and the sources lean strongly towards duty.
Really, not just a choice anymore.
The argument emerging is that, it's kind of moved beyond choice. The climate crisis affects everyone, all of humanity. So it becomes a shared responsibility, something we can't just opt out of. The example given was the frequent Australian wildfires, a direct result of climate change hitting people, animals, quality of life. Hard. It makes the urgency really clear.
So doing nothing, being silent, that's effectively being part of the problem in this view.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. And what's interesting is how even small actions are framed as part of this duty.
Like what kind of small actions?
Well, remember the person volunteering in the cleanup campaign? collecting plastic, handing out recycling brochures.
Yeah.
They stressed how that stuff creates awareness. It starts conversations. The sources basically say, don't underestimate your impact. Don't fall into that, what difference can I possibly make trap.
Right.
And they also point to programs like the Duke of Edinburgh's Award,
Yeah.
that international youth program.
Sure, I know it.
It structures things like physical activity, skills, and community service, maybe helping the elderly, for example. The point is, these programs don't just achieve something in the moment. They build self-confidence, and crucially, they instill a habit of responsibility. They help nurture more sensitive, engaged citizens over the long term. So if we kind of tie all this together, if we connect it to the bigger picture, what we've really talked about today is how volunteering is this incredibly powerful two-way street.
A reciprocal exchange.
Exactly. It offers really profound personal development, often in unexpected ways, while at the same time it addresses critical societal needs and bit by bit builds stronger, more connected communities.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Well, it means that every act of service, doesn't matter how big or small it feels, it isn't just giving back. It's more like a meaningful exchange, something that enriches both the person giving and the person receiving and helps shape a more empathetic, more responsible world overall. So maybe consider this. Where in your life or maybe in your community could a personal investment using your unique time, your skills, spark a real ripple effect? What seemingly small action could actually be part of a much larger shared responsibility? Something that might transform others, yeah, but maybe transform you even more in the process.
Yeah.
That's something we invite you to explore for yourself.